Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing well and staying safe and washing those hands and sanitizing those hands and maintaining that social distance that you need to keep. I did find out something about social distancing is I was trying to keep everything 6 feet apart, but my wife really didn't like it too well. We'd be getting locked out of the house, so lesson learned. There's some things with social distancing. Family members, you probably need to not practice that so strictly. So anyway, I've probably heard a lot of things in the news and Facebook and different places about something called Zoom bombing, or people jumping into Zoom meetings and kind of causing some problems. Well, IT Services has sent out some best practices about Zoom security, and then I've been asked to kind of create a video that kind of goes through some of those things as far as dealing with Zoom security and how we can kind of lock down some of our Zoom meetings that we're having at the college. So anyway, I want to go through that and kind of show you some pointers on how to practice the best security you can when using Zoom. So I am going to get out of this and kind of go through this first screen. Pardon me. As you see, your screen may look a little different. There's different versions of Zoom out there. I have the absolute latest version. I just downloaded this yesterday, and so it's the latest, and it has changed a few times over the past couple months. So if you have an older version, it may look a little different. So the first thing I want to talk about, there's several things here, but the first thing I want to talk about is the schedule. This is where you can actually schedule up a meeting, and you can set several security features in on this. You can set your topic. You can name this whatever you want. You can set this up to faculty senate meeting. You can set it to a classified staff meeting. Whatever you want to call this. Have a start time and date, estimated duration of when this is, whether or not it's recurring. Most of these are kind of ad hoc anyway, so they probably don't need that. Here's where you set up your meeting ID. So if you want to send this out to be more generic, you can have one generated automatically, or whenever you sign up with a Zoom account, you have the ability to set up your own personal ID that stays with you every single time. This is not my personal ID. I set this up temporarily. I changed my personal ID temporarily so I would not display this to everyone. I'm trying to practice kind of what I preach, but do not send out your personal ID on social media, for example. That's where a lot of this Zoom bombing took place, is because people were posting their Zoom meeting IDs out in public areas, and they were just wide open for people to access. So if you do have a personal ID, keep it within the confines of the North Arc network through email, through individual text messages, or whatever. But like I said, this is not mine. This is a temporarily generated, my goodness, I can't talk, generated ID just for this training video. Now here's another piece right here that is very good for security. You can actually say require a meeting password. So you can type in whatever password you wish you can be numbers, letters, a phrase, whatever you'd like to do. And this would require anybody that's trying to join your meeting to enter a password before they're allowed to join. So I'm going to take that off because the person I have that's going to be doing this test does not know the password, so I'm going to leave that off of there. Other options you can set is your video. Right now, this is set to where the video is on for the host, and I've just now changed it to where it's off for the participants. So whenever a participant joins, their video is automatically off, so we cannot see them. They would have to turn that on, or the host would have to request to have them turn their video on if they wish. So that's totally up to you. That is a preference that is completely customizable and up to you. The other thing is audio. You have three options: telephone, computer audio, or either. I would suggest either because there's some that may not have computer audio. They may just be calling in for a cell phone. So you want to have that option available. The other thing here is your calendar. Now, if you're on a North Arc system and you've got Outlook configured with your email account and everything, then you can choose Outlook. But if you're calling from a personal or setting up a meeting from a personal machine or somewhere else, or your phone or whatever, I would choose Other Calendar, and I'll show you why that becomes important in just a moment. But the only time you want to pick Outlook, because what it's going to do whenever you finish this, it's going to try to open up Outlook and schedule that meeting so you can invite your attendees. So then the next part is advanced options. This enable waiting room. This is really nice. This is another security feature of Zoom, to where you have a waiting room that whenever a participant tries to join your meeting, they're placed in a waiting room. It's the best way to describe it. But then the host then selects who they accept to join the meeting, or if they want to reject them. Now, one word of caution there is that, for example, if you're meeting with students, they may be setting up with their parents' computer and their parents' accounts. So sometimes the names may not match up with who you're expecting. So that's one downside of the waiting rooms. Because, like I said, if the names don't match up, you may not know who they are, and you may have to take a chance to accept them into the meeting anyway to figure out who they are. So, but anyway, if everybody has that they're there, then you can enable that waiting room and then accept them as they join in. Also, this enable join before host, I would leave that unchecked. Basically, if that's unchecked, then they should get a box that says, host has not started the meeting yet, and it will just kind of leave them there. I'm sure we've all seen that until the host kicks in. Once the meeting starts, then you automatically get added to the meeting or to the waiting room, either one. Also, another feature that you can do is you can mute participants on entry. So basically, we've all been there where participants have started up and they may be yelling at the dog and not realizing that they've joined up yet. So you can set up to mute participants on entry, and you can have the ability for they can unmute themselves. And here's why I wanted to say that if you're on a personal computer or somewhere else, is whenever you click schedule, what happens here is then you have the text of your Zoom invitation, and all you want to do is copy the clipboard and then open up whatever email client you may have on your computer, and then you can just paste that in there, and it makes it really easy, so it's not bound to just Outlook, especially if you're using a personal computer. All right, so let's go ahead and start up a meeting. Now, if you want to start up an ad hoc meeting, not have one scheduled, then you can just start a new meeting. But first, before I do that, I want to go into the meetings. If you notice, this meetings tab, this is now has the meeting that I have set up and scheduled. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, well, I'm going to go ahead and start that now, or I can delete it or edit it. So I'm going to say I'm going to start this at 7:20. So I'm going to change that, save it, and you can copy the clipboard and send it out if you want. But so now it's starting at 7:20. Starts in 1 minute, and I'm going to go ahead and as a host, I'm going to go ahead and start that meeting up. So, and I'm going to join, and I recommend that you always test your audio and video every time you get started, simply because sometimes whenever I'm in class and doing something, I get animated with my hands, and I've actually yanked my microphone out of the computer before. So make sure that you test that. So I'm going to go ahead and ask somebody to join up our meeting so we can kind of look at some of the features of Zoom security from within a meeting. So now here you see that Stacy Williams is there in the waiting room. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this Manage Participants, and I could have accepted her right from that pop-up, or since I've clicked on Manage Participants, I now see her here, and I have the option to admit her or remove her. So now I'm going to go ahead and say admit. And you notice that now she has joined her meeting, or our meeting, and it's automatically muted, some of the things that we've done. So there are several options. You can, as the host, you can unmute her. You can click on the ellipses here, so you also have the option to unmute at that point. You can ask her if you wish to stay, your video is not on, can you start your video? And it'll have a pop-up on her side to do that. You can chat directly with her. You can rename her. This is that situation where somebody's signed up with somebody else's account, and it wasn't who you expected to be. You can actually rename it so you don't get confused on who's actually joined your meeting. If you have to leave the meeting for any reason, you can make that person the host, so they can take over and continue to record or share or do whatever they need to. If they start acting up, you can remove the person completely, or you can put them in timeout. Let's say hey, I'm going to have you sit outside and chill for a little bit. So you can put them back out in the waiting room, and you notice that they're left the meeting. They're now sitting out in the waiting room, and say, well, I'll go ahead and I'll be nice, and I'll go ahead and admit them back in. So you have some options there with your users. And also, if you have a lot of folks that have called in from the telephone, you have a lot of people on the screen, you may want to hide all the non-video participants so it doesn't take up all the real estate on your computer screen. Okay, one other thing that we can look at, while we're here, is that we have the group chat. And with chat, you can do several things here. There's some other security features I want to look at while we have Stacy on the line here. So right now, whenever you do a chat, it's to everyone. And right now, then, if as the host, I can chat individually with individual participants. Well, there's other settings you can choose. You can say who the participant can chat with. You can actually say where they can't chat. They can chat with no one, or they may only be able to chat with you as the host. Or maybe if you want them to give the ability to chat with everyone publicly, or everyone publicly or privately. So that way, if they're doing publicly and privately, they can choose to privately chat with some other participant privately without the host knowing about it. So there's several options within chat for the participants that are handy, that you as the host can control. All right, so I believe that's all that we want to look at. There's also the more over here that has some of the same features that we looked at over in the main screen with this ellipses. You can do the same thing over here. You can chat, start video, make host, rename, put them away, and remove. So a lot of the same features there. It's just in a kind of a little bit different format. So that is how you can manage your participants in a Zoom meeting. And I'll say that Stacy she's acted up too much, and I'm going to say, I've had enough. I'm just going to go ahead and remove you out of the meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and kick her off the meeting completely. So that's how you can kind of take control of a meeting using some of the Zoom security. And the neat feature is that waiting room feature. So make sure that you can take advantage of that. So let's go through the Zoom toolbar down here at the bottom. You can, of course, see audio and video settings. There's several things you can do there. Again, test your audio and video every single time, just in case you may have yanked the microphone out of the computer, like I've done in several occasions. So those are some things you want to do. Test things before you get joined up. Another thing that's fairly new, this was added in the last, I think the next to last release of Zoom. It's only been here about a few weeks, but the security button. This has a lot of the same things that we saw in the scheduling and some of the other areas where you can enable that waiting room right from here. Also, a very nice feature is, let's say that you have all your participants that have joined, and everybody that has said that that's going to be joining has joined. They're connected. All is good. The full complement is there. You can now lock that meeting, which means that basically no one else can join, even if they have the password or not. So that meeting is now locked. No one else can barge in. Also, you can give a quick, this is kind of a quick window of what your participants can do. It allows them if they can share their screen, or if they're allowed to chat, or if they're allowed to rename themselves. So those are things that that they've added to the on this button, just to make it really quick and easy to do. As we have the participants windows open, you've seen what we can do with that. Polls, that's for another thing. Chat, we've talked about. Sharing screen. As you know, with Zoom, you can share your computer screen, you can share a whiteboard, you can share an individual window. We'll just give you a quick look, but you can see all the different things that it may have open that you can share. If you're playing a video to Carroll County, for example, make sure you click that share computer sound. The whiteboard, it has drawing tools, and I'm not going to go into the iPhone or iPad at this point, because that's a little extra tech stuff that require a lot of information about your network. So anyway, Recording, you have two options: record on the computer, record on the cloud. I always recommend record on the computer. But the thing is make sure you know where it's recording to. You don't want it to get lost somewhere and then try to figure out where your recording went. So you can set that up in your settings prior when you're doing the setup of your Zoom clients. And the reason why I recommend doing that instead of the cloud may make it easier to get access to in other areas, but Zoom only provides a certain amount of storage space for video. So after we hit that storage space as a college, we start getting charged. So we've already hit the storage space limit several times. Had to ask users to delete some of their videos because otherwise it's a charge that continues on, and we just don't want any extra charges to hit us. And then your reactions. This is something fairly new. Participant can go in there and do a thumbs up. Puts a little thumbs up in the top left of the window. Just tells the host, "Hey, good job." So anyway, that's and what's neat is that it's only positive, so you can either clap or a thumbs up. So that's a neat thing, and it only puts it up there just for a little bit. So anyway, Zoom. Make sure that you do not. First of all, make sure you do not publicize your Zoom meeting ID out there out in the world. Email to your individual participants, that's secure, so that unless they share what other people do with your meeting ID, that's really not you really have no control over that, unfortunately. But make sure that you keep the Zoom ID as private as possible through the email and through maybe your course or Canvas course, because all those things are encrypted, all those things are considered somewhat private. So that is one of the big things that's happened with these Zoom bombings, is they had publicly published Zoom ID meetings and times of when they're going to be meeting, and that's what they were doing, is crashing those. So make sure you do that. Make sure you practice some of these other safeguards. And if you're like what I do, I use Zoom to do a lot of recordings just for my class with just me. So if you start up a recording, then lock the meeting, and that prevents somebody else from coming in and crashing your recording. So there's a lot of different things you can do within Zoom to protect yourself. So it's a great tool, and like I said, I may be doing some more of these videos about some of the other uses of Zoom and maybe some best practices. So if that's of interest to you, please let me know, and we'll continue on. But hope everyone's doing well, and I really miss everyone, and I hope to get to see you all soon. Hope this is all over real quick, and we can kind of get things back to normal. But hope everybody does well. Happy Easter, and everybody have a great week.